Ethiopia, a land of ancient history and vibrant culture, stands as a pivotal nation in the Horn of Africa. Its ancient kingdoms, unique traditions, and diverse population have shaped a nation of immense cultural wealth. Yet beneath this veneer of history and heritage lies a nation grappling with deep-seated challenges. Since 2018, Ethiopia has been caught in a spiral of civil unrest, casting a shadow over its future. The conflict, rooted in complex political and ethnic tensions, has brought immense suffering to its people and threatened to unravel the very fabric of the nation. The international community must pay heed to the plight of Ethiopia and work towards supporting a path towards lasting stability and reconciliation. The future of this ancient land, with its rich history and vibrant culture, hangs in the balance. The hope for a peaceful and prosperous Ethiopia rests on the ability of its leaders and people to find common ground and build a future based on unity, equality, and respect for the rights of all citizens. The journey towards reconciliation will be arduous, but the pursuit of peace remains the only viable path forward for this ancient land. The descent into civil conflict in 2018 marked a turning point in Ethiopia's recent history. A wave of protests, initially sparked by economic grievances and demands for greater political freedom, quickly escalated into a complex and multifaceted conflict. Underlying these immediate triggers were deep-seated ethnic tensions and political marginalization that had been simmering for years. The Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or EPRDF, a coalition of ethnically based parties, had held power since 1991. However, the EPRDF's grip on power was increasingly seen as dominated by the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, representing a minority group in Ethiopian society. This perceived dominance fueled resentment and a sense of exclusion among other ethnic groups, particularly the Oromo and Amhara, who together constitute a majority of the population. Abiy's initial reforms, including the release of political prisoners and promises of greater political freedom, were met with widespread acclaim. However, this initial euphoria was short-lived as long-suppressed tensions resurfaced, fueled by political maneuvering and a resurgence of ethnic nationalism. The conflict in the Tigray region, which erupted in November 2020, marked a significant escalation of the crisis. At the heart of Ethiopia's ongoing crisis lies a leadership vacuum marked by Abiy Ahmed's increasingly autocratic tendencies and his government's failure to address the root causes of the conflict. While initially hailed as a reformer, Abiy's tenure has been marred by a growing intolerance for dissent and a centralization of power that has alienated many. His initial attempts at reconciliation and dialogue have been overshadowed by a heavy-handed approach to dealing with opposition and dissent. The conflict in Tigray in particular has exposed the darker side of Abiy's leadership. His government's decision to launch a military offensive against the TPLF, coupled with a communications blackout and restrictions on humanitarian access, has drawn widespread international condemnation. Abiy's stubborn refusal to acknowledge the severity of the crisis and his government's role in fueling the conflict has further deepened the chasm between the government and those seeking a peaceful resolution. The international community has a crucial role to play in breaking the cycle of violence and promoting dialogue. Diplomatic pressure, targeted sanctions against those responsible for human rights abuses, and increased humanitarian assistance are all essential components of a comprehensive response. The ongoing conflict in Ethiopia has unleashed a humanitarian catastrophe of immense proportions, leaving millions displaced, countless lives lost, and a deep scar on the nation's social fabric. The fighting has forced millions to flee their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring regions or across international borders. Overcrowded displacement camps have become breeding grounds for disease, while access to basic necessities like food, water, and healthcare remains woefully inadequate. The conflict's impact on children has been particularly devastating. Thousands have been orphaned or separated from their families, deprived of education, and exposed to unimaginable trauma. The psychological toll of witnessing violence, losing loved ones, and living in constant fear will have long-lasting consequences on their well-being. The conflict has also exacerbated existing vulnerabilities, particularly for women and girls, who face heightened risks of gender-based violence, exploitation, and abuse in conflict settings. The breakdown of law and order has created an environment of impunity where perpetrators of violence often act without fear of accountability. Urgent action is needed to provide life-saving assistance to those in need, protect civilians from further harm, and hold perpetrators of human rights abuses accountable for their actions.